And we're back with another episode of What's Hockey. Keaton, we're returning from the Four Nations tournament, so we'll recap that before jumping into around that hockey in our usual podcast. But what do you remember of that unfortunate Thursday night loss to the Canades?
I mean, it was pretty disappointing overall. I mean, for the most part, we had a good fight out of Jacob Slavin and Jake Sanderson. Brady Kachuk even played well, but it just seemed like half of the U.S. team was just kind of occupying space. They weren't really doing anything. Um, honestly, it felt like JT Miller, Adam Fox, Trocheck, Kreider, Boldy, Connor, Brock Nelson, Jack Hughes, and Noah Hannafin were just completely useless. Non-existent for the team. It just doesn't make any sense, and they played pretty well. I think Jack Hughes, as soon as he came back to the Devils, he scored 2 goals within like a minute. It was like, dude, like, you can play. Why didn't you try?
He did that against the Stars, and we'll definitely get to that in a little bit. I think, it was a big disappointment on the offensive side for all those players you mentioned. I will say, like, Boldy, I remember him, I got his box score pulled up. He blocked a few shots on the other end of the ice. It really seemed like most of our attacking players were just playing defense that game, which, I mean, look at the lines across from you. It's pretty difficult. So we weren't controlling possession like I would have loved to seen. And then I think the loss of Charlie McAvoy was pretty big as well. You saw the impact he made in the first matchup between the U.S. and Canada, and so it was extremely disappointing that it seemed like we couldn't replicate, I should say, that physicality that we did in the first matchup. It was still, fast pace, high action. In fact, when we got back to regular NHL hockey, it seemed like it was slow motion almost. But and so again, competitive game. It goes to overtime, but Jordan Bennington in overtime, my God, like there were multiple opportunities to score. There was one, I think it was Austin Matthews. He puts it on net, and Bennington's kind of scrambling around and just throws the glove up, and he makes the save that would have won us the game and won us the tournament, but we could not get past him. And then at the other end in overtime,
and then Austin Matthews let Connor McDavid go free, wide open in the middle of the ice.
The most dangerous player on the ice left all alone, man. There's nothing Connor Hellebuck could do about that. So that was pretty disappointing. I do think that, like, I don't know what you can do when you're trying to replace your defenseman. You want to bring up Quinn Hughes, but then you can't do that. So Sanderson's who we went with, and he did get a goal. So, like, I mean, he produced. Played well. Yeah, you know what?
He played really well two-way hockey. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it was maybe everyone kind of making those jokes about him, coming up with some sort of injury so Quinn Hughes can play, that kind of thing. Maybe that just motivated him to play a little bit harder. But I don't know. He played really well.
I mean, and you have Matthew Tkachuk also injured too in the game. So, like, he played, like 5 minutes? Let me see.
And I think he might even be out for the remaining of the season. I don't know. I think the Panthers coach said something like, I'm not too worried about him, but I mean, it doesn't sound great.
Yeah, no.
At least for the time being.
No, they don't sound too optimistic. But to be fair, NHL teams are rarely clear about what's happening with injuries. But yeah, so the offensive side, though, like you mentioned, the lack of production from multiple lines.
I mean, Larkin played really well, and I mean, he should have started from the get-go. But, he played really well, just couldn't get anything done against Bennington.
Yeah, it was a tough one. Slavin was playing hard as hell, though. I will say I loved his defensive efforts.
He had 4 block shots.
And there was one really where it was like, I think Hellebuck had made a save, and he had to go out to his left or something like that. And the puck is just floating to the right, and it's just a Canadian. And out of nowhere, you see Slavin's stick come in and deflect it. So, I mean, he made Honestly, man, holding Canada to 2 goals in regulation is a pretty impressive effort. And like I mentioned, we had plenty of block shots, not just from our defensemen, but also forwards. So on that side of the ice, I mean, they did what they could, really. It's just we could
Yeah.
not get the offense going, and then in overtime, Bennington became a god, and so we just could not get it done, man. Twas
Pretty
disappointing.
disappointing.
Yeah, man. We'll shift
But
on over to around that
to
hockey.
the normal league stuff, we've got Kevin Lankinen signing a 5-year deal with the Canucks on Friday for $22.5 million. He backed up Yusei Saros in Nashville the past 2 years, and I believe Thatcher Demko is now on IR, so they're just shoring up that goalie position,
Yeah,
especially long term. Who knows if they want to keep Demko at this point?
yeah. So I was reading reading an article that was saying that Demko, since the end of last year, has had a few injuries, and then you have this one going on now. But his contract expires at the end of next year, and so essentially, it seems like that they believe Lankinen would be their goalie going forward past that as well.
He played like shit during that Four Nations face-off, but I mean,
yeah.
What can you do when you play? Well, he played for Finland, right? So
he played for Finland. The first game against Canada was not great. Wait, no, was it Saros in that for
his
Canada?
average was 4.84 goals against, so that was.
I think it was the Sweden game where he got pulled, or was it the Canadian one? It was one of the two. He got pulled for Saros at some point in that tournament. But essentially, it seems like the front office isn't trusting Demko long term, and so yeah, he could get dealt. At the end of this year.
He's been out
since
last year in playoff time. So I mean, it's been a long time, and everybody's just been waiting him to come back. So I mean, I would assume.
And while we're saying
at that point.
Yeah, and while we're saying Lankinen didn't have a great tournament, what that article was saying, it was a Vancouver Canucks article, was essentially saying that he's looked really good this year in net. And if Demko was back, they could potentially be splitting games as a 1A, 1B. And so, I
just hope he's not another Ville Husso guy. So.
Oh, well, speaking of, you want to transition over there?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like the Ducks wanted him for whatever reason. They sent us some future considerations, and I'm glad he's off our roster.
Dude, yeah. I don't even understand why they traded for him.
The Ducks are like 6 points out of wild card consideration, but I don't really understand why they chose to go for him. I mean, they definitely don't watch our podcast, but
no, not at all.
And even that I don't get it.
If you really think Ville Husso is the way that you catch up to the Canucks, who we were just talking about a second ago, but like that just doesn't make any sense to me. So I whatever those future considerations are, like, is it like, oh, you restock my vending machine one time and you can have this goalie? Like, I don't understand.
What is this, Moneyball?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what. Yeah, here's a washing machine. But no, I mean, that's just nonsense. And the Ducks are not going to come back into the playoff picture. Yeah, they are 6 points out, but you have Calgary that's is 1 point out from below there, below the Canucks, and so it's just too much competition to me.
I mean, their last 10 games, they've been 7-2-1. So I mean, they're not anything to really just, shrug aside just yet. But
I mean, I can attest that being that
they're making some sense of a competition.
One of those wins was against the Stars, I believe. And we talk about on this podcast, like, any night, it can be your night. It's not as predictable as in other sports, I feel, with hockey. But that being said, I can predict right now the Ducks will not be a wild card team.
Hey, who knows? Speaking of the Ducks as well, we've got Trevor Zegras taking a 3-game suspension for a dirty hit against Michael Rasmussen, I believe on Sunday night. Just shoulder to the head, didn't call a penalty for whatever reason. Everyone was, pissed off, rightfully so. So I don't really understand I think I saw something where Todd McClellan was given the reasoning behind the no call, and they basically just said, we didn't see it. But there's like 4 referees on ice looking directly at the puck at all times. I mean, like, How
It
couldn't
was
you
such
see
a
it?
late hit too, like again,
Oh,
like super dirty, straight to the dome, and also he had already passed the puck up, and it was dead in the middle of the ice. Like every ref they got their eyes on that, but no, yeah, that was ridiculous. That was a no call. And similar
yeah.
situation happened in the Stars game, and I can get to that when we get to the Stars games, to Red Wings and Stars talk. But yeah, no, that hit right there was stupid. I don't know.
Egregious.
Yeah, it really was.
This is nonsense. But yeah, we've got Jets talk. We've got Vladislav Nemesnikov signed a 2-year contract to remain with the Jets, $3 million a year deal. Forward has 29 points, so yeah, pretty solid, and you should keep him in your lineup, I guess. Whatever.
Sure. Yeah, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the Sam Steele deal. Essentially, we re-signed Sam Steele to a it's 4 years, or sorry, 2 years, 4 million total, 2 a year. The Nemesnikov deal was 3 mil a year, and so I mean, it's essentially you trust that guy to be a solid bottom four of your 6 line
You
attacking
don't want to
unit.
keep him too long term, but you just want to see where he's going to play later on.
And the assumption would be also that if you're going to fill that exact role, it might cost more in free agency, so we can get a team friendly
Yeah.
deal now. And so, yeah, it makes sense.
And unfortunate news with the Wild, Kirill Kaprizov will be out longer than initially expected. I believe he was only supposed to be out for like 4 weeks, and they're probably going to push him out a little bit longer. Not too sure exactly what's going on. Obviously, like we mentioned, those injuries are just never really disclosed. But ultimately, he's in his fourth out of the 5-year contract he recently signed. Recently being in the last 5 years. But yeah, I mean, who knows if Wild will keep him? I don't.
Oh, I mean,
He's played really well this season, but I mean, he just got injured, and what kind of production can you do if you're out of the lineup?
I think they'll stick with him a bit. He's not. He's fairly young still, and I mean, he was leading their team, and it was points and it was goals or points. I forget exactly.
He
But
was
I mean,
leading the league in goals at one point,
yeah,
like
yeah.
early the first month or so. But
If they ever decide to trade him, they'll get a king's ransom, even with this injury.
yeah,
I wouldn't expect them to move on anytime soon.
oh no,
Who knows? I wouldn't have assumed the other Dallas team playing basketball would never have moved on from someone else, but things happen.
ridiculous. Yeah. Ultimately, we do have some crazy news. Ovechkin gets a hat trick on Sunday against the Oilers. Scores again. He's 13 away from the record and only 25 games left for their season. Definitely looks good as far as his pace, but anything can happen those last 25 games, and he may get injured. Who knows? Hopefully not, but
Well, you can account for at least you can pretty much predict he's going to get an empty netter at least like for half of those games. That's 8 right there. And then
yeah, I mean, I did watch the game against the Penguins where I think the Capitals got like 2 power plays back to back, and the entire time they were just feeding it to Ovechkin, just trying to get him to score. I mean, I think it was like 6-3 at that point. I don't really know what the score was, but it was just kind of, they were just playing with the Penguins. And yeah, I mean, it was ridiculous. He was on ice for like 40 something minutes, 4 minutes and 40 seconds, something like that. I don't really know, but it was a long shift, and it's good that his old body can keep up, but yeah,
dude, and the thing
they're definitely going to try to feed him the puck.
like that team is so ahead of their division as well. Like they're 14 points ahead, and it's not that I'm thinking Ovechkin's a net negative, but it does feel like with 5 minutes left in the game, your team is that good. You're likely to be ahead. even if it's not an empty netter, then you can start going ahead and trying to go for Gretzky's record and say like let's target him offensively to go ahead and try to put this in. And look, if it backfires and they have to now go to overtime, well, oh no, but they're literally up by 14 points on the team behind them, so like they can take some risks a bit.
Yeah, and I was watching the game against the Oilers as well, and I think I can't remember his name. He looked like a goofball, but one of the like halftime like intermission guys that talk about the game. I guess one of them was just like, I don't believe Ovechkin's gonna do anything today, and blah blah blah, and it's Tom Wilson's team, blah blah blah, and then like a period later he gets a hat trick, and it's like, oh, but they had an interview and they were talking to him and he's like, yeah, it definitely is Tom Wilson's team. It's not mine. It's just kind of funny. So I mean, he's definitely old enough to be like, on his way out of the league. But I mean,
well, his bones don't
definitely
know it.
Not
I mean,
technically his team.
He healed from a broken bone in like 3 weeks.
Ridiculous.
So like, yeah, no.
He might play until he's 60. Who knows?
Exactly. If he ends up not doing it this year, which, I mean, Jesus Christ, he's definitely on pace. But if he, for some reason, doesn't.
13 goals away.
Yeah. I mean, he could. I would think he's going to retire at the end of this year. But let's say he decided to come back for one more. I think he'd be perfectly fine. At least being like a third line guy. You know what I mean? He's definitely not the star.
And I mean, I don't even know if he wants to retire after the record at that point.
Yeah,
so,
no, I don't know that either.
He might just keep pushing for whatever reason.
I mean, Washington could go on an insane run in the postseason.
I mean, they're playing really well this season.
Yeah,
so, I mean, they're definitely Stanley Cup probables, I guess.
Oh, yeah. They got the most points in the league right now, actually, by a fair margin. And they haven't played more games than everyone at all. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
The last 2 games, they scored Winnipeg. 15.
Jesus
The last
Christ.
2 games, they've scored 15. And, I mean, only one of those games we got Ovechkin to score a hat trick. He didn't score in the other one.
Yeah, that is just insane, man. But
it's crazy. The Capitals look great. And I don't even think they had any players from the Four Nations, so they were definitely well rested, so...
Yeah, off the top of my head, I can't think of any.
Because, I mean, the only one that I can think of is probably like Ovechkin, but I mean, he's Russian, so they didn't have that nation.
Well, Tom Wilson, right? But he wasn't on the. He's American, right?
Probably.
I think he's American.
I would assume so with a name like that.
Tom Wilson.
But, yeah, I mean, ultimately, I would assume that he got snubbed.
I mean, he wasn't on that Oh, he's Canadian, and that roster was way too stacked, so he was not going to make that.
Still snubbed.
Yeah, fair enough, I suppose. I mean, their lines were stupid.
You could probably name one of those players on the Four Nations face-off that got in for no reason. I can't think of one right now.
I can't think of a single. Maybe he could replace Cirelli.
What's his name?
Marchand?
I mean, Marchand's just kind of chirpy. He didn't really play that well overall, I guess. But, I mean, like, on the U.S. team, Brock Nelson definitely could have replaced that guy.
Well, Tom Wilson's Canadian, so he can't replace him.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, you could find anybody on one of the rosters to be like, that guy sucks.
Okay, gotcha. Fair enough. You could just look at Finland.
I mean, they weren't that bad.
Their defense is where their issues were, so, I mean, they had solid
half of them were hurt, so...
Exactly.
I mean, it's not really their fault, but...
I think I saw that they only had, like, 9 Finnish defenders in the entire NHL, and it's an NHL tournament, and so you only have a pool of 9, and then Miro gets hurt. They brought in, like,
at least you can pull from the AHL, but even still...
But yeah, it's like extremely limited for them. Maybe it was 8 guys. I don't know, but their resources were very thin. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
That being said, very wild. Was there another news story? Did you want to switch on over to Red Wing Stars talk?
No, there weren't any spectacular news stories that I know of.
Nice.
Yeah, moving on. The Red Wings played 2 games this little last break or whatever they played Saturday and Sunday. Definitely thought we were going to win both of them by a wide margin, but for whatever reason, the third period and the last 5 minutes of both games, they were like, yeah, let's just let them score.
Mm.
So we ended up going really well. DeBrincat gets a nice goal about 8 minutes into the first period against the Wild. Looks like I saw a graphic where it showed that he has like 14 first period goals, which actually leads the league, or at least led the league at that point, which is pretty crazy. I mean, last year he wasn't like, I mean, he played well, but he wasn't really as much of a factor as he is this year. I mean, he's got, I think, 25 goals this season, so like 20 plus is always pretty good for any team. So yeah, playing pretty well. And then we get into the power play, and DeBrincat snipes it into the corner, and it kind of like bounces in but out. So everyone thought it went in, but Larkin and I think one of the other defenders were the only people that like actually paid attention and noticed it wasn't like actually in, and Larkin just tips it in and scores. And they had a big, hullabaloo just reviewing it, making sure everything was good. Because apparently there was some sort of intent to blow a whistle question, which is absolute nonsense.
I did see that.
Absolute nonsense.
So stupid.
But either way, I mean, we were still credited, which was great. But what a nonsensical take. Oh, he may have blown the whistle at that point. What? But anyway. So we get out to a 2-0 lead, and then unfortunately, a couple minutes later, Minnesota gets a power play goal from Hinestreza, and unfortunately, get that 2-1. So, a 1-goal game. And then I believe the next period we enter the power play. I think it like carried over from the last period, but 22 seconds in, Lucas Raymond gets another goal. Classic. And makes it 3-1. And unfortunately, the Wild score 2 goals within the last 5 minutes of that third period, force overtime, and Marco Rossi just gets free. Matt Boldy got an assist on that first goal. I don't know if he scored on the other two, but the OT winner was Marco Rossi. I think we were like trying to score, and it just took a bad deflection. He was the only person there, and then just took it off on a breakaway, and it was just dumb.
Yeah.
But, and I mean, I've actually, now that I remember it, he like kind of fans on it and doesn't really like shoot it, but like Talbot doesn't really know where it is, and it just glides into the net. And it's like, bro, what are you doing?
Boy. That's tough.
But anyway, we still get a point out of that, and with the Senators losing that same day, we jump up to wild card spot 1. Ooh, and with the next game, we played the Ducks. An incredible first period. Within the first 5 minutes, we scored 3 goals, and which is incredibly depressing. We ended up going to overtime that game, which is absolute nonsense. So 2 minutes into the second period, JT Compher scores out, gets the 4th goal of the night, but Cutter Gauthier, I don't know. Who knows?
Who could tell?
He ends up scoring about 5 minutes after that, and then not even 2.5 minutes left in the game, they scored 2 more goals to tie it up. And just doesn't make any sense. They force OT, and classic Patrick Kane gets the OT winner, but it shouldn't have even gone to OT. Definitely a bit discerning, but either way, definitely a good response to not take another OT loss after they just did. But definitely need to shore up those last 5 minutes of the game, because that's where you win games, because I don't really understand what's going on. Next week, we play the Wild at Wild, which is tonight. Should be a pretty decent game. And then we've got the Blue Jackets kind of back-to-back. I can't remember what days we play, but we play in Detroit the first game, and then we go take the Stadium Series up in Ohio, and we'll play the outside game. See what's up. We've got Dylan Larkin versus Zach Werenski. They were roommates at Michigan. Uh, Pretty cool, I guess. So they're pretty good friends. So maybe they'll throw a hit or two at each other. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's also Ohio territory for the other rivalry as far as the Ohio State Michigan rivalry. So I mean, it'll extend a little bit further as well. But
Oh,
hey, should be a good game.
is that the Stadium Series game?
Yeah,
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's dope.
that's literally what I just said.
My
and then
fault.
I'd be outside.
I got ADD. I got mean ADD right there. Totally missed that one. Yeah, that's gonna be dope,
Nice,
man.
dog.
I was lucky enough to go.
It
to
should
the,
be March 1st. I believe that's a Saturday, so
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
I was lucky enough to go to the
Horrible
Winter
at times.
Classic. January. It was New Year's Day,
Yeah.
I think 2020. And
Saturday.
I mean, it's just a dope atmosphere being outside and seeing it.
Yeah.
It looks like pond hockey, you know. So that
Yeah,
should be real cool.
I mean,
man.
it'd be really fun to see, but I definitely don't want to go to the Cotton Bowl, man.
Hey,
that's
what's
a little
wrong with
too
the Cotton
packed.
Bowl?
It's just packed. I don't like how many people there are at all times.
Fair enough.
But yeah. So we play the Blue Jackets on Thursday and then Saturday. But those are the only three games this week up until I believe Tuesday, March 4th. We play the Hurricanes in Detroit. So in case we don't happen to record that day, but yeah, I believe we should go 2-1, maybe 2-0-1, just to take an OT loss. But yeah, it should be a solid outing for the Red Wings, hopefully to keep that wild card spot one.
Yeah, for sure. Well, on the other end of the league, the other
Western
conference, I don't know what's wrong with me right now, but the Dallas Stars played 2 games back to back, which I really hate that it was a back to back to immediately return from the Four Nations, but I know because of Four Nations, a little condensed with their schedule. But we went ahead and played the Devils on Saturday. That game we had Casey DeSmith in net, and he went ahead and had a pretty dang good game. You had mentioned Jack Hughes earlier. He does end up getting 2 goals in relatively quick succession. But that wasn't until the third period. That game started with Tadonov. He gets a pass. Was it a pass or was it deflected? Dumba shoots it in super quick, and Dodonov's right by the goalie, and I can't remember if it went off the goalie's pad and then to Dodonov, or if it went straight to Dodonov. But he shoots. The goalie saves the first one, gets his own rebound, puts it in net, makes it 1-0. And then 2 minutes later, Thomas Harley on the power play scores. So it's good to see him continuing that momentum he had from the Four Nations tournament. I know he was getting kind of crapped on when he was the one called up. Some people wanted Bouchard. Some people wanted, I don't know, take your pick of a Canadian defender. They were very much hating on Thomas Harley. He played well in that tournament, and then he continues on with the game on Saturday going against
the Jacob Sanderson effect.
Pretty much, man. I mean, that first goal, and again, I hate Canada, and I hate that I had to see it, but that first goal is set up by Thomas Harley, not just getting the assist, because, I mean, it was kind of a smaller pass, but he clears the lane, which opens it up for McKinnon, but that's not what we're recapping. But yeah, Harley continues that hot pace, like I was saying, scores on the power play, which is really good, in particular because our power play started so poor at the beginning of this season. So to see it really pick up as of late,
Can't be worse than the Red Wings. We're 32nd.
we were like 31st for a while. And then I think I last saw we had moved up to like, I don't know.
Our power play is second, but our PK is 32nd.
God,
it's
man.
horrible.
Jesus Christ. Well, yeah, that being said, though, again, Hughes gets involved in the third period. He gets that goal about 10 minutes in. 30 seconds later, Duchesne they're switching shifts. Duchesne immediately goes from the bench to wide open in the middle of the ice, puts it in net. So that makes it, was that 3-1? 3-1. And then, yeah, a minute later, Jack Hughes scores again. I will say, so like that first goal, it was a power play for the Devils. Their passing was stupendous. Like I said, Casey DeSmith had a good game, man, but there's nothing he could really do about that first goal. The second goal as well is a one-timer. It was a one-time slap shot, and so that thing came in like a missile.
It's also pretty incredible to have 2 brothers on your team. I mean, You already have that sync.
Just trade for Quinn Hughes at this point. You'll have all three.
Yeah.
But yeah, then following that up, there's an empty net, and Wyatt Johnson goes ahead. I think he stole the puck somewhere near mid ice and puts it in net. So that ends that game 4-2 over the Devils. And then we go ahead the very next night. We travel from Jersey to New York to take on the Islanders. Sam Steele scores 2 minutes.
You think they took a bus?
Dog, come on. No, but Sam Steele scores 2 minutes in, and then that was followed up by who scored for the Islanders? I did not write that down, but the Islanders made it 1-1 in the beginning of the second period.
That was another disappointing outing because I thought Jake Ottinger wouldn't have scored on 3 times.
Well, okay, so, and I'll get right to that, actually. So, real quick, Robertson, after that, makes it 2-1. The assist from Rope, great assist from Rope, so I'm happy that...
Did Robertson get, 2 goals that game?
Robertson got a hat trick. And that assist by Rope, I was real happy to see because I was a little worried. He kind of gets hot and cold, and so I was worried his confidence was kind of shaken from Four Nations. He didn't perform very well there, but he got the assist to Robo. And then the reason that I think Palmieri scored before what I want to talk. Yeah, Palmieri scored 2-2. But what I want to talk about, Leon Bischel is skating. Is it? I think it's on the Islanders' end of the ice. I think it's on the Islanders' end. No, it was probably on ours. Yeah, it was on our end. He's a defender, obviously. Okay, so it's behind the goalie, kind of a little diagonal, like where the little what is that called? The I'm forgetting the shape right there. The trapezoid. It's kind of towards the end of the trapezoid.
A rhombus?
No, it's called the trapezoid. That's what it's called in hockey. But anyway, he's kind of towards the end of that trapezoid, and Sizanik, is that his name? I don't know. I think it's Sizanik. I'm just gonna call him
some guy.
Well, he goes ahead and gets that elbow shoulder up. Hits Bischel on the side of the head, similar to that Rasmussen hit, and Bischel's out for the game. Like he's injured. There's a game misconduct, so Sizanik gets kicked out of the game. Dumba immediately starts a fight with him, and that caused Dumba to be out for 17 minutes because there was fighting for 5. There was another minor for instigating, and then a 10-minute misconduct. So he misses 17 minutes of ice time. And then you also have Bischel getting injured. So you're missing 2 defenders when you don't have Heiskanen, you don't have Lyubushkin. Lyubushkin's out for the season. So you're extremely thin there, and you have you have 4 total dressed defenders at that point in the game. And so you go ahead and see what you unfortunately had to see where Duclair scores that 3rd goal, so you lose your bet on that one. But during that game misconduct, the Stars scored 2 goals on the major power play, and those were both by Robertson, so that got him his hat trick, and we win that game 4-3. The defensive position, man, it's really thin for the Stars right now. Like, I'm happy we brought in Ceci, but good God, where would we be if we didn't bring him in?
Maybe Seth Jones will go to the Stars. I think he opened up his trade clause from the Blackhawks. So he might be a pretty decent addition for you guys.
I'm curious to see how long Bischel's out for. I haven't seen an update, but that was like so upsetting to see Bischel get hurt right there. I mean, he's played. I love how he plays.
He's a younger player too.
He is, absolutely, and he's big and physical too. Like he's not scared of contact. There was someone
it comes with the younger years, that's for sure.
Well, but that's the thing though, is like you'll have some younger players who need to be protected by other players, and although Dumba did step up to retaliate for Bischel, Bischel doesn't get bullied or backed down by anyone. Like if you're in front of the net, he's whacking you out the way. So it's a tough loss. So hopefully it's not for a long time. We'll see. It could be like concussion protocol, but I probably shouldn't speculate. Dumba, of course, he missed the 17 minutes of ice time, but he did come back. And I will say Dumba's kind of picked his game up a little bit too. The Stars fan base was very out on the way Matt Dumba's played this year. And to be fair, he hasn't played well. but the last few games he
Isn't the
has.
Arizona Coyotes trying to get him?
What was with that headline? That makes no sense. Oh, 3 hours ago, there's a news article online that said the Coyotes are interested in getting Dumbo. Why was that posted 3 hours ago? Anyway, but yeah, and then
Nonsense.
yeah, so I do expect the Stars to go for another defender, not just because the absence of Bischel, but again, you have Labushkin. I think it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, when he was officially ruled out for the season, and Miro isn't going to be back until the playoffs, basically. So we're real thin there, man. That is a major concern of mine. So I mean, hopefully, that turns out well. The offensive side, I love what we're doing, man. I mentioned Sam Steele, another guy on his line, Colin Blackwell. Stankoven sat. He was a healthy scratch for the game against the Devils, I think it was, or was that the Islanders? But Blackwell got an assist in that game and looked pretty solid. And of course, Sam Steele just got that contract. He scores a goal immediately. So, I mean, just the depth offensively is so good. I've obviously lauded the addition of Mikael Granlund as well. So, it's just the defensive side is a little worrisome. And as I mentioned, Casey DeSmith is the backup goalie. He had a great game against the Devils too. So it's just that defensive side, man. As long as we can secure that, I really don't have concerns.
It's kind of how I feel.
Yeah.
I mean, after Sider, Edvinson, and Sherratt, there's like nobody else that plays defense for the Red Wings.
Yeah.
You might as well throw in your local garbage man. It's wild.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? One thing too on the talk about acquiring new players, the Stars tend to draft really well.
The trade deadline's in 2 weeks, I believe.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be all over that. The Stars tend to draft really well, and we're not super deep in prospects right now, but the talk is that if we were to trade for someone, it would cost us like Logan Stankoven or Maverick Bork, who Stankoven's obviously been a little cold, but I do like him as a player. Bork's been super hot, played very well as of late, and so I would hate to see either of those players go or to lose a draft pick. Really, you already gave up a first and a third for CC and Granlund. You've given up stuff in the past when we acquired Tanev last year, and that was just a rental, of course. I do think we need someone, but I mean, we can't just go in blind to a trade. We have to really think it through because, again, we're not super deep in prospects, and giving up quality picks is going to cost us long term. So, we'll see how that all plays out. We'll be all over that trade deadline. But going forward for the Stars this
you
week,
might as well get a GM like Yzerman and try to get Billy Husso off your team. I mean, that's crazy work.
Jim Nill's a great GM.
How you get to...
The Stars have a fantastic GM, Jim Mill. Yeah. I believe he was the GM of the year last year, or 2 years ago. He's a fantastic GM, so I do trust him to do what's in the best interest of the team. Again, as opposed to the team that bounced the ball on a court, their GM does not want to do that. But anyway, going forward this week, the Stars they're playing the Blue Jackets tonight in Columbus, continuing this road trip nonsense. Coming out of the Four Nations break, which, good God, who scheduled this? But we'll be up there. I think we'll go ahead and win that game. I will say I do expect the Blue Jackets to get plenty of pucks on net. I think it'll be kind of a tighter game than I'd like. Again, I have a lot of confidence in our offense. I don't know what the defense is going to look like, man. And so I do expect that to be somewhat high scoring. Like I could see that be a 4-3 game. It's not super high scoring, but that's why I did say somewhat. 4-3 game, but I'll take the Stars in that one to close out that stupid road trip. On Friday, we'll play the Kings, and that will finally be back at home. Last time we played the Kings, they did beat us in a shootout 5-4, and they were, again, getting hella pucks on net. And I don't know the defense right now, so I'm going to unfortunately say that the Kings win that game, man. It's disgusting coming out of my mouth.
They played really well against the Golden Knights last night, so.
Yeah, man. I just, again, don't know the defense, and I do know the Kings offensively they've stepped their game up as of late, so I have to give them the edge there.
I mean, I'm not going to lie, I don't really know many players on the Kings, but, I mean, Fiala's okay.
Well, I think Fiala got hurt, right? Or I know he got hit in the
No, he
face.
played in his last
Oh,
game.
did he? Okay.
Well, I don't know. Could
I,
have got hurt that game. I don't know. But he assisted
oh no,
on. I think
I'm
he got like
stupid.
an assist or something.
I'm thinking of someone. I'm not thinking. I was thinking.
Classic.
I was looking at the Blue Jackets logo, and I was thinking of Fantilli. No, yeah, Fiala. Okay, gotcha. Might be. Well, moving on.
Yeah.
Sunday we'll be
See, you
hosting
don't
the
even know any of the Kings players.
again, that ADD, man, I was zoning out. But moving on, Sunday we'll be playing the Blues. Old Jim Montgomery comes back to town, and I'll say we take care of business there. I've said it in the past. While there was that nice new coach bump for the Blues, they're still trash to me. And so I don't.
Yeah, they've lost their edge, unfortunately.
Yep. So yeah, we'll be playing 3 games before we record again. Our next game after that is Tuesday. So if for whatever reason we don't record that Tuesday, I'll go ahead and make a prediction for that game. It's against the Devils. It's in Dallas. I'd say we took care of business over there in New Jersey. We'll take care of business over here in Dallas. But
Nice, dude.
we're going to go from picking games of our own team to picking games against the spread around the league. Keaton, we have a large slate of games today. We're going to go ahead and start off with the Maple Leafs and the Bruins. The spread in that one is Bruins plus 1.5. Who are you taking there?
I'm taking the Maple Leafs in this one. The Bruins have been pretty disappointing overall.
Yeah, I too am taking the Maple Leafs
And
minus.
the lack of Charlie McAvoy could definitely hurt their odds. So
Dude, it's still so wild. Like an infection from the injury he got. Like, who the hell was his doctor?
yeah,
Good God. But all right. Anyway,
yeah.
Ducks and Sabres in Buffalo. Spread in that game is Sabres minus 1.5. Who are you taking there?
I'm gonna take the Ducks in this one. Like I mentioned, they've been 7-2-1 this last stretch of 10 games. So I mean, they've been playing pretty well.
Yeah, man. While I was crapping on them earlier for not making the wild card, well, I can
And
for
the
sure
Sabres
say,
suck.
yeah, exactly. I can say the Sabres definitely won't either. And so I am going to take the Ducks plus 1.5 there. Moving on, Carolina is traveling to Montreal to take on the Canadiens. Spreading that one, Canadiens plus 1.5. Who are you taking there?
I'm gonna take Carolina. I don't believe in the Habs currently. I don't know. Just
Yeah,
kind of been a weird question mark this whole season because they were like playoff contention and then they just fell off real quick. So I don't know.
I mean when you look at those rosters, the Hurricanes are obviously a lot better. But I will say, I feel like you had Slavin in the tournament. You had Jarvis in the tournament. I feel like their star players might have a little bit
Jarvis
of
wasn't
tired.
playing, was he?
Yeah, Jarvis was on the Canadian side, I believe.
He's trash.
Nice. And I don't think Ransonen's found his footing on that team. That's a
He looks
reason
like
he's in
he's a
the
trade
rumor
target
mill.
for whatever reason.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to say the Canadians at home plus 1.5. They could lose that game, but still keep within one, and I will take that. Moving on,
Nice, dude.
Penguins and the Flyers in Philadelphia. Spreading that game, Flyers minus 1.5 for the Battle of Pennsylvania. Who are you taking?
That's gonna be a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. Saw the Penguins play on Saturday, and that was just abysmal. I think I'm gonna have to take the Flyers in this one.
Okay. I'm gonna disagree with you. I'm gonna take the road team there, and which they're not traveling too far. I'll take the Penguins plus 1.5. Moving on, we've got the Calgary Flames traveling to the nation's capital to take on the Capitals. Spread in that one is minus 1.5 to Washington. Who are you taking there?
I'm taking Washington. I've previously stated they've been incredible this season. So
Yeah,
yeah,
pretty easy decision for me too. Although Calgary's not too bad, I will go with Capitals as well. And you know, like even if that game's a 1 goal lead, you're gonna get that OV empty netter, so that's gonna put it away.
yeah.
Stars and Blue Jackets. Blue Jackets at home. Spread is Blue Jackets plus 1.5. Who are you taking there?
I'm going to take the Blue Jackets in this one.
Yeah, I did predict that 4-3 Stars win, which means Columbus would cover with a goal and a half added. So I will be taking Columbus plus 1.5. Edmonton
Nice, dude.
and Tampa Bay. Spreading that game is going in Tampa Bay, I should say. Spreading that game, Tampa minus 1.5 goals. Who are you taking there?
I'm going to have to take Tampa. The Oilers have just been super top heavy, and after their first and second lines, they're just abysmal. They have nothing going on for them. It's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, Vasilevsky too in net is just. I hate that guy. I have nightmares about that guy, so I'm also taking
Nightmares.
Yeah, he
Get
cost
outta
us the
here.
Stanley Cup, man. We could not score on him. But yeah, Tampa Bay minus 1.5 for me. A battle for New York now. We got the Rangers and the Islanders. This one taking place at the Islanders arena.
Game.
Spreading that game is Islanders plus 1.5. Who are you taking there?
I'm probably going to take the Islanders in this one. The Rangers have been awful.
Honestly,
as well as the Islanders, but I mean, they'll probably just keep a close game, and it'll be like 1-2 or something stupid.
I'm pretty surprised
even
to hear
1-0,
you say that.
To be honestly.
This might be the first time you've taken the Islanders all year. I'd, of course, have to check, and I don't want to do that, but I think that's the first time I've ever heard you say Islanders. And I'm going to agree with you, actually, plus 1.5. I saw the way they played the Stars, and again, we were missing 2 defensemen for a period of the game, but I think that's it's an okay.
Like the Rangers only really have what's his name, Rimpe, to just throw bows. I mean, that's kind of it. JT Miller's been kind of useless.
We could use a fight tonight.
Recently, at least.
I bet you gloves are dropped. I can pretty much predict that. But moving on, the Kraken are traveling to St. Louis to take on the Blues. The hometown Blues are a minus 1.5 this game. Who are you taking there?
That'll be interesting, but I think I'm going to have to take the Blues. The Kraken just aren't good.
Yep. That is a clean sweep for Jim Montgomery and the Blues. The Kraken are just awful. Also, we're about to get into our prize pick segment, but I swear every time I've ever taken a player's shots on goal over against the Kraken, they cover. Them boys be allowing so many shots on net. So St. Louis Blues for me as well. Panthers and Predators, that game in Nashville. Nashville is given plus 1.5 there. Who are you taking?
Even without Matthew Tkachuk out, I think the Panthers still cover that 1.5 spread. So the Predators just suck, man.
Yeah, I'm a big time Preds hater. Give me the Panthers minus 1.5 as well.
Okay.
Your team, the Detroit Red Wings, will be traveling to Minnesota to take on the Wild. Minnesota is a minus 1.5 there. Who are you taking?
I'm taking the Red Wings. Even if we lose, it'll be a close game.
Detroit's plus 1.5 for you. I will be going against you. I'm taking the Wild, even without Kirill Kaprizov or Kaprizov, however you say it. I do think
it's Kaprizov, dog.
My bad.
I mean, it should be Kaprizov, but it actually is Kaprizov.
Okay, gotcha. Well, yeah, I'll be taking the Wild there. And lastly, the Chicago Blackhawks will be going to Utah, taking on the Hockey Club, where Utah is a minus 1.5 there. Who are you taking?
I'm going to take Utah. There's just nothing going on for the Chicago Blackhawks at this point. And with Seth Jones waiving his trade clause, I mean, it's just they're either going to look for the next year or the next 5 years because they don't look very good at all.
Yeah, I concur. I will be going with the Hockey Club as well. Still waiting to hear what name they decide. But yeah, Hockey Club for me. Keaton, we finish up with prize picks. Last week,
hopefully the Outlaws.
That wouldn't be too bad. It's
like
very general, name. Very light.
I mean, it's better than the Hockey Club, but it's a dumb name. Why would you be the Utah Outlaws? What kind of outlaw shit goes on in Utah?
Mormonism, dog. But
why is that outlawed?
It should be. No, it's too much. All our Mormon viewers have now changed the channel. My fault, y'all.
This guy.
Moving on, we finish up with prize picks. Last week, Keaton, my bet hit. I went with McDavid shots on goal and Gensel shots on goal. I will say, if it were possible to lose that bet and McDavid doesn't get that last shot on goal, I would donate the money right now. But that one did hit, so I greened down on that. This week, I'm going with David Pastrnak over on his time on ice. Line is set at 20 minutes. He kind of jumps up and down, but against Toronto, he's consistently around 21, sometimes 22. I feel like that little rivalry going on is going to lead him to have longer shifts. And then I'm pairing that with Ryan O'Reilly to get over 9.5 face-off wins. The man gets plenty pretty much every time he plays, although he's had some down games every now and then. But against Florida, without Barkov, I think their lines are going to be a little mixed around. And last time he played Florida, he got over. I think he got 13 last time he played Florida. So I feel comfortable with him getting over 9.5 today.
Trash. So I just took a look at the bet I previously placed. It looks like one guy's not going to play, so I'm going to have to switch it up a tad. So I've got Mo Sider with more than 24.25 time on ice, in addition to what I believe to be Steven Stamkos getting more than 0.5 hits.
Stammy, unreal. I saw that line. I was kind of thinking about taking the under low key. But
why?
I don't know. He's just an old man. I don't trust him to always get hits. But no, that
he'd be hitting, dog. Look at his past line.
I did see his past lines. That's what kind of discouraged me on taking the under on that. But hopefully it's not just Steven Stamkos hitting. Hopefully it's us hitting on our bets tonight. Keaton, I believe that wraps up the podcast. Is there anything that we're forgetting?
No, I think that should be it. Hopefully my prize picks outing does better than last week. I forgot to mention Bitch Marner is a bitch. He did not cover for me. Otherwise, we had Zach Werenski covering with 4 shots on goal. I think his line was 1.5. So, I mean, he played really well. Or maybe it was just 2 or something. I don't know. But either way, easy cover. But, yeah, Mitch Marner, useless. See, another player that you can talk about how he could be snubbed. Tom Wilson probably could have done better.
Low-key, I think you're right about that. But I think that'll wrap it up for today. Y'all take it easy. Peace.